keep silent. He made public statements in which he said that he had come to the U.S. to continue his struggle, to continue doing what he has been doing his entire life, that he was not going to retire, that he had decided to continue that fighting openly from Miami, from a place that he knows very well. Many of his terrorist colleagues are doing that openly without any limitation or any constraint from part of the authorities.
Well, I just feel such a great source of pride of being here in the United States Congress and representing so many freedom fighters, both in exile in the United States and on the island as well. I welcome the opportunity of having anyone assassinate Fidel Castro and any leader who is oppressing the people. And if they don't assassinate him and if they bring him to trial, I welcome the opportunity to having him meet a jury of his peers and answer. And in the end, he will answer to God. And I know that the justice will be, he will share that podium along with many other tyrannical leaders. It didn't happen under George Bush the first, and it didn't happen under President Clinton. It hasn't happened under President Bush the second, but it's going to happen. No tyranny is going to live forever, and we know that that day will come. And yes, many presidents have said that they're going to be the presidents, but that will step foot into a free Cuba, and that's good. We want them to feel like that change is going to happen, and it's going to happen under their watch, because it will happen.
I was assigned, among other things, I was assigned to be the secretary of something called the Special Group. And the Special Group was a very efficient organization because it consisted of only 4 members and me, the hired help. And so they could make decisions just like that. A lot of people thought that was bad because, for instance, the State Department representatives would have a meeting before our meeting with all his people, and then he would come in and say, well, I'm not sure we ought to do this, and then he'd get overruled, or maybe he wouldn't, and sometimes it would go up to the president, and we weren't supposed to admit that it went to the president, but sometimes it did. And so it was that was a pretty worthwhile thing, I think, to produce a lot of stuff. And the main thing we had at that time was preparations for the Bay of Pigs. And they used to discuss that every day, but then there were a lot of other covert things too that were all had to be decided one way or another. Well, it was, I can't remember where it started, but somebody just said that as I recall it, that you give him something that would make his beard fall out, and then he wouldn't be manly anymore, and so forth. Well, you know that. And then there was another one that he was supposed to find a shell that had explosives in it, and these were the kinds of things that they were doing. But as I say, nobody really thought they were that important. I don't think. I certainly didn't, and but people tried to do it, and we were pushed to do it from Bobby Kennedy in the White House. Ed Lansdale, as the chief of operations, and he came up with all these great ideas, many of which were totally impractical, but they also included some sabotage operations and blowing up a sugar plant and one thing and another. One time they contaminated a sugar, a ship that was full of sugar and so forth. But in the end, these were pretty much pinpricks.
Did you hear about poisoning a cigar?
Yes, yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, it was just that they were going to. They had an agent who said that he could deliver this thing and put it somewhere that Castro would use it. And I don't know whatever happened to that. I don't think, as I recall, he reported that he wasn't able to do it, I think. That was one thing. Another one was that Lansdale always denied, was that he came up with an idea that he should say that Castro was the Antichrist, and that you spread that word around in Cuba, and then there would be a submarine, American submarine, just over the horizon that would send up some star shells, and then he would say, you see, that's God saying that he's against the Antichrist. Well, you know, come on. And nobody really could take that very seriously. But Lansdale pushed that for a while, and he denied that for a long time. I think he denied it to the end of his life. But that was a serious proposal on his part.
But for Bobby, it was personal.
Yeah, I think so.
Can you tell me a bit about that?
Well, he just felt that his brother had been insulted, or you know, that Castro just was paying no attention to the great man up in north.
It seems like there was almost a desperation.
Well, that's right. I mean, and people were frustrated because we kept getting it pounding from, what are you doing about that? Bobby would say, you know, I'm going to have to tell my brother that you're not producing. And, of course, we weren't producing because, you know, the whole idea was just to, well, they said to sort of keep the pot simmering. Well, we did have it simmering, I guess, but didn't go beyond that. And nobody, I think, really thought that what the next step might be, and if you're going to invade Cuba or whatever you're going to do. And then the missile crisis came along and changed everything. But anyway, I thought that Jack was fine, and I thought that Bobby he had to put up with him, that was all.
You were telling me about how Bobby was really on your case and on everyone's case to push for action in Cuba. Can you tell me about that?
Well, he would mainly go directly to the CIA people, and so I just heard about it indirectly somewhat. But that he would just say, you know, we got to come up with some ideas. We haven't accomplished anything, and I'm not sure he said, I'm going to tell my brother, but that was the idea. I'll tell my brother if you don't do anything. And I just have the feeling that you're not working on this. Well, they had a whole enormous, as Halpern probably told you, I mean, they had a whole group of people who were doing nothing but work on Mongoose, on Cuba. And they were doing their best, but as I say, there wasn't much you could do. You know, keep the pot simmering, but so what? And that's about the way it came out.
In terms of, I understand there was a idea of plausible deniability for some of the attempts, and I'm just wondering about the assassination attempts, the cigars and the shells. Would the president have known about that?
That's a good question, and I just do not know the answer. I don't know the answer. I don't think he would have thought that was good. I really just don't know. Plausible denial has always been it's in the directives for covert action that you should be able to plausibly deny it, and that's why, for instance, as I say, it was a euphemism, but I would talk about higher authority instead of the president, never mention the president, which was not a, you know, kind of a thin euphemism, but it was. And So I just don't know how much he knew about it or not. I suspect that Bobby knew more than probably he would admit. But Bobby knew all about it. Bobby was pressing them to do this.
The likelihood is he probably told his brother. The likelihood is he probably told his brother.
Probably, yes. Yeah.